right, we completed most of the woodwork on the boat actually, and got the gunnels on it. Now I've replaced the inwale and I've replaced the guard. When I first put them on, they were both square edge inside and out, and I screwed them together and I bedded it onto the dinel with polysulfide just to make a nice seal in there, but I didn't want it to be really glued on so it could be taken off. And then I countersunk the screws, and then I replaced them with rivets. Down in the bottom of the hole, we bucked it, and then I took a plane actually and cut this groove in here. The first thing I did was route like a very small slot down the middle for depth, and then I took a rounded plane, of which I don't have in my hands. It's always been not something that I enjoyed, putting that cotton covered rubber on the rail, so we decided we would put a rope around it, and apparently the boat had a rope around it originally like this, but it was always very difficult to keep them on. Very difficult. So I've hollowed the guard out to fit the rope, and we'll place it in here like this. And basically what we finally decided is that we would just literally glue the rope to the inwale. So I've already primed it, but I used MAS epoxy so it wouldn't have any amine blush to make a bond release between the two glues. We decided to use rivets here because they have a head on both ends, and this wood isn't particularly hard, so rather than use screws and rely on the holding power, we're going to head it up on both ends, and what we're using is what they call a copper common nail. It's got a flat head so it sits down nice and flush on the inside. We've drilled a hole through it. It's got a little countersink on the outside. We're going to buck it with a little punch on the outside and a hammer, and we drive the rove up on the wire like so with a little driver. Now that just drives the rove down and buries it into the rail a little bit there. And then I'm just going to cut it off loose, short, and cut it where I want. And then I rasped it a little bit because it was a little bit rough on the outside here. And then we're putting a punch on the outside here because the head of the rivet's in a little bit of a hole. Just backing it up with a sledgehammer there to buck that end of the rivet. And then we're just going to take a ball peen hammer and bang on the rivet a little bit there and mushroom the head of the wire over the rove. And it does a nice, neat job. All right, I'm just about to glue the manilla line into this rounded groove on the gunnel here, and I'm going to use TotalBoat THIXO thickened epoxy. It's a gel glue. It pumps out of 2 chambers, and it gets mixed together by itself in this little mixing nozzle. Very convenient. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this screw cap, and then I'm going to pull this little end piece off of here that's replaceable, so you don't have to use the whole tube. Screw on the mixing applicator, and then I've actually taken a little chisel and just cut the end of this off at a certain size. They've provided different grooves so you can get different size beads out of this. So now what I'm going to do is just going to take it up onto the boat and squirt a bead down that groove, and there it goes. Now we're just going to put a bead about that size in there. Now we're trying to control the size of this bead because I don't want it to squeeze out above or below the manilla line because it would just make a mess and we'd have to clean it up. We want to kind of confine it to the bottom of the slot there a little bit. So now we're just going to lift the rope up above the bead here and press it in nice and neat like so, and just work our way right down there like that, keeping it stretched a little bit, and just press it on top of that bead nice and carefully. Okay, we're just about to finish up here, and we're just going to press it into the rest of this little groove. And we're actually just going to let the weight of the rope hang like that. And then after that dries, I'm going to bend that around the corner so it doesn't lift it here. And these little leather trim pieces apply down there to give it a little extra cushion on the back corner so it doesn't dent your boat.